Welcome to the Nightly Rant
with
your hosts, Mike
and Torya.
This is the show where we examine society from a sarcastic point of view.
If you like insane conversations, this is definitely the show for you.
Let's get into today's topic. YPN people, I don't know about you, but I love helping out a friend. That's why I want to shout out my friend Brian Little and his podcast, Your Favorite Blockhead. This is the only show that manages to weave together peanuts and MMA into one heck of an amazing podcast. You can find Your Favorite Blockhead wherever your favorite podcasts reside and at yourfavoriteblockhead.com. Do me a huge favor and listen to Brian's show. You'll be entertained and you'll help out a friend. Now, as I said, let's get into today's topic. You know, we've talked a lot about the positive side of relationships and how to keep them positive, but we've never talked about the negative aspects of a long-term relationship, like the downsides.
That's because we don't really have any current personal experience.
Well,
which is why I think that's sure.
I think that's true, but I think what you have to think about is you have to know where a long-term relationship can head in a negative way and why it heads there so that you don't do that thing that sends it there. Because I don't think it should be one of those things that, well, once we do it and once we go there, then we'll deal with it. No, you should avoid it in the first place. If you're aware that it's got potential and it's going to take you doing X, Y, or Z to make it happen, you don't do X, Y, or Z so that it doesn't screw the whole thing up. Why?
Okay.
That's just my feeling. I think that the downsides of a long-term relationship are things like that, where you don't deal with it up front and you wait until it's a problem and then you have to problem solve. And unfortunately, most people aren't very good problem solving on their own, let alone with another person. It does complicate things a bit.
So what are these massive downsides that are on your mind right now?
Well, that's one area where you're absolutely right. Is it's hard to come up with a long list for any reason because I don't know. I try to be more positive, but also like you said, having not had experience with it in my current. I mean, gosh, how long have we been together now? 6 years.
It's 2014.
So 6 years. Going to be 7 years. Okay.
Yeah.
And we've never had those weird, odd, strange downside issues. We really haven't.
Well, how about you tell me what the downside issues are, and then I'll tell you if I agree with you.
All right. Like, for instance, waiting until something is a problem before dealing with it. And I'm not talking about things that are a surprise. Okay. I'm talking about, yeah, there's been a pattern like this before. We wound up over here. But that's okay. When we get there, I know how to deal with it. Instead of, yeah, there's been a pattern. This happened and we wound up over here and it's happening again. And so I'm going to head it off at the pass and not let it happen. That's the right approach to me. The other way is the downside approach. Let it go, because then you have to have a fight. Why have to have a stupid fight? Why not head off the stupid fight?
Okay. Seems reasonable.
So there's a downside.
Agree with that one.
Okay. So there's a downside. Then I think that being taken for granted is something that can happen in a relationship. And it's funny because people tell you, oh, it's easy to solve that. You just have to be intentional about how you are towards the other person. Well, duh.
Is that easy?
But that's the point. Duh. That's what being taken for granted ultimately is. where you don't think about their perspective majority of the time. It could be 51% of the time. That puts you on that side of the scale. You're screwed. Make sense?
I don't understand why people always say that's easy, though, because it's a choice you have to make every single day.
Well, yeah, and you know what? You find yourself, that's a very good point, and you find yourself in situations where you say the wrong thing because you react in anger or out of emotion. You react too quickly. And I'm talking you as in general, all of us, we do this. Okay.
Better be.
And that causes friction in a relationship. It doesn't smooth things over.
It's kind of sandpapery.
And it's the more of that you have is when the bigger the problem becomes, right? And I think that's why we have a harder time relating to the downsides, because we don't really experience the downsides. That's kind of a positive, it's not even kind of, that's a positive thing to say about our relationship. And by the way, I'm trying to eliminate words like kind of from my vocabulary, because Grammarly tells me that I'm more authoritative sounding when I don't say kind of a great indicator of how good our marriage is. I just say it's a great indicator of how good our marriage is.
You must pick formal as one of your settings.
And get rid of kind of.
Instead of, how there's the...
No, I don't pick formal ever. But it's telling you not to use a qualifier, because if you use a qualifier, you're giving yourself an out. You just have to own it. That's how you're authoritative. You're going to own it. I believe this is what it's like. Boom. Other person wants to argue with you? Let them. Remember, just because you have a differing opinion doesn't make either person right or wrong.
Right.
So, you go with your feeling. But the downside is that by not experiencing the downsides, you can get blindsided by them.
Okay.
And that's why I think that's why I wanted to have like this kind of discussion tonight, because I want people to understand that even when you have a really good relationship, you still have to think about your relationship, and you have to be intentional about it. And like you said, being intentional, not easy, because like you said, every day you have to wake up and you have to say, today I'm going to be positive again. And every single day you have to wake up and say that. And I'm sorry, but I don't think I'm not even going to say that. I'm going to say it this way. I think there's less than a handful of people who can say they're positive every single day without fail.
Like all day?
Yeah. Ugh. Handful. Less than a handful of people.
I don't feel like I'd like those people very much.
Yeah, that's for another story.
Just like you don't like people who are negative
all the time.
100% of the time.
Yeah. There has to be a happy medium somewhere. But the point here is, people shouldn't give up on things just because it's not currently going their way or whatever. They should still do what's right for them. That's what bothers me about this presidential election. And of course, by the time you guys hear this, it'll already have been decided. But what bothers me is
people will still be whining.
A lot of people are voting for Trump because they don't like Biden. And a lot of people are voting for Biden because they don't like Trump. So if those people are basically saying, I wouldn't really have voted for either of these two, but I don't feel like I had a choice. If they would have went with the third party choice, 100% that person would have won.
Right.
And yet these people always say, oh, it's impossible. It couldn't happen. It's impossible. It's only impossible because you don't put a movement together and make it possible. That's it. That's the only reason it's not possible. And that bugs me.
When people have been brainwashed.
Yeah, it bugs me that people have that attitude, and they have that attitude towards relationships too. If your relationship is too perfect, there must be a lot of big things wrong with it that you're hiding. Why? But why? I mean, sincere question. Why? Why must there be something you're hiding? It couldn't just be that good. It's not possible.
I mean, no relationship is perfect.
No.
But just because you don't air the dirty laundry of the non-perfect things in front of other people, doesn't mean anything.
Right, but what I was saying before reminds me of the conversation we had when we were in Vegas house hunting.
Okay. Which conversation?
And it was the conversation about being taken for granted, and how I realized that, I don't know, it just dawned on me that you never asked me to cook. But by the same token, I thought about it. I was like, but then I tend to be the one that does the majority of the cleaning.
You rarely ask me to clean.
So, right. I mean, it is what it is. Okay. And it's just interesting how it meshes like that. But my point that I'm trying to make here is that we have our things that we have our things that we don't completely sync up on. But why our relationship stays intact is because we have a method for dealing with those things that maybe other people might not even agree with, but who gives a crap? If when we're done, you're satisfied with the result and I'm satisfied with the result, none of them matters.
So you're saying there's a method to our madness.
Yeah, that's the thing. And I think that's why when I realized that, like maybe 15 years ago, when that like hit me,
I didn't know you then.
A ton of bricks. You didn't know me then. But when that hit me, it opened up a lot of things for me. I mean, like, I was always really accepting of like alternative lifestyles. That's just what I'm going to say. Any alternative lifestyle is pretty accepting of it. But
with the obvious exception,
I was guilty of being a giant pussy and just keeping my mouth shut about it.
Okay.
I didn't fight against it because I agreed with it. But I didn't openly fight for it because I didn't want to be ridiculed by the majority, right? But then when I learned that, like, you know what? Not only should they not be telling people, oh, you can't be gay, you can't be transsexual, you can't be, you can't be transgender, you can't do this, you can't do that. Instead of doing all of that, if they just went, you know what? Whatever floats your boat, like literally, as long as it's between consenting adults, whatever floats your boat.
Allow your boat to be floated. Exactly.
Do what you want to do. Nobody cares. You know why? Because it doesn't matter to us.
Well, I'm sorry, but like the people who live across from us, I don't give a shit what they do as long as they close their blinds. They could be having like wild monkey sex in there.
They could be banging right in front of the patio door and we wouldn't care as long as we can't see it.
There could be 35 of them in there having an orgy and I don't care.
Yeah, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. And that's, I don't know.
Just like I don't judge you for eating steak that's still pink in the middle.
Well,
even though I think it's super gross.
That's a weird
You're
one.
You're doing you, man.
But like I thought about like even my feelings about this go pretty deep because even when we were living at the other apartment complex, there was a couple of times where I was pretty sure someone in a certain apartment was,
doing the wild
handling men for money.
Oh.
But I didn't judge them. You know why? All I kept an eye on was, were there weird, creepy people hanging around? Yes or no? Okay, no. Good.
You're talking about the lady who used to walk through the building in her thong?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, she's way too comfortable bearing it all in front of everybody. Like, seriously. Like, but you don't judge them for it. That's the key. That's, I was saying way too much. You just don't judge them for it. That's their way of making money. As long as they're not making you unsafe in your environment.
Right.
Then we're all good. Right. That's the key. If they want to do that, that's fine. But it does attract, nobody's going to deny this, it does attract some shady ass people.
As long as they keep their 73-person orgy in the apartment across the way and don't try to do it in our living room, I couldn't
Nobody cares.
care
Exactly.
less what they do.
Exactly. And that's the thing that so many people don't understand. Everything is responded with, make a law to stop them from doing that. Make a law to force them to do that. Make a law saying they're not allowed to tell me what I can do.
Right.
Every response is make another law, make another law. And it's no wonder things get so complicated and people get messed over because there's 73 laws that all say the same thing.
Just like I don't care what religion people are.
Well, yeah.
I don't care at all.
Just religion in general. Like, I can honestly say, and I hope you're not shocked by this, but I don't think you will be. But I can honestly say that I don't think you 100%, like, it's the one part of me that I don't think you 100% understand where I come from on it. I think it's literally the only thing. And you know what? People are like, oh my God, he's saying she doesn't understand. You know what? I said not 100%. What if I told you she understood 99.9999999999999?
Dude, chill.
What if I told you that? Okay, so take your little semantic arguments and go away, because it drives me nuts when people do that stuff. Be so damn specific about shit. So there you go. She knows me so well.
Get to what you were trying to say,
it's
my
just
friend.
the one issue, which is religion. I have a weird view on religion that is not standard, and I purposely don't speak publicly about it to anybody but you.
Well, I'm not public, Dingle.
Yes. But I don't open my mouth to anyone else but you about it, because I feel it's controversial, and I don't want to be controversial.
Yes, you do. Just
No,
not
I
in
don't.
that ring.
Well, not like that. Hell to the no. Anyway, and that's the only area. That says a lot. But that means, guess what that means? Even if everything else was 100% perfect, our relationship isn't perfect. And you're going to have something exactly like that you're going to be able to say about me.
Well, I could say the exact same thing about you. I don't think you grasp 100% where I come from when it comes to religion either.
Well, you know what? I can 100% admit that, but I'm also going to lay part of the blame at your feet. You don't talk about it.
Well, yeah, that's fine.
You avoid the conversation when it comes up, and that's okay. And that's another thing that you just look. I love you to death. That is not something that's going to make me not love you. It's not going to make me love you any less. Why would it? You are who you are. You believe what you believe. You think the way you think, and you handle each different situation the way you want to handle it. That's cool with me. The only time it's not cool with me is when someone purposely steps into my lane, on purpose, tries to trip me, that kind of thing. When it just because we intersect and clash in certain areas, that would be okay too. I'm talking about we could have big areas, bang, bang. Doesn't matter, because the vast majority of our relationship is as close to perfection as you can get. And that's what matters to me.
Okie dokie.
The overall. And yeah, so like I said, hopefully you're not shocked. But that's why I brought up the whole taking for granted when we were in Vegas, because I wanted to make it a point of making kind of you holding me accountable because no one else can without it being bragging, right? Like you can't bring, you need to keep an eye on me and make sure I'm doing this for my wife. It seems like it's bragging. So I have you hold me accountable. And it's like, you know what? If I am taking you for granted at any point, I want you to say so. That's why I brought it up. I want you to know that it's my mission in life not to ever take you for granted, because I'm going to tell you two reasons why. One, you are way too special a person for anyone to take for granted. Way too special of a person. And number two, I personally know what it feels like when you're taken for granted. So I'm not even speaking for you here. I'm speaking for why I wouldn't want you to be taken for granted. It hurts like hell when you're taken for granted by someone. You just want to curl up in a ball. It just hurts like hell. So
yeah, I wouldn't know that at all.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying you don't, but my point is I care about you enough that I don't think you should ever be taken for granted for those two reasons. It's too special and it hurts too much. It's not worth it to put someone through pain like that. So I guess, you know what? I've come to a conclusion now that we kind of wrap it all the way back around.
What?
The downfalls in a relationship are what you create yourself.
Okay.
Because you made a great point. You made a great point about things being someone's choice. They chose to do that. Well, isn't it true that we pretty much do choose what we're faced with a situation? We choose to go left or right. One way's right, one way's wrong. One way's going to lead to better circumstances than the other. How about that? Instead of right and wrong. And I think we always choose. So ultimately where we are now is where we've chosen.
Have you never heard that you are a result of all your choices?
Well, yeah, but that's the point. Like someone today was screaming at me on Facebook about how if you went through their life, you'd end up right here. I say that's not true, because if I was faced with the exact same decisions as them,
You would not make the
I
same
don't
choices.
think I'd be making the exact same choices.
And even if, as soon as you make a different choice, the life is different.
Yeah.
One
just
single choice.
Just one. Exactly. Well, and that's what like the whole World Series drama. When then we can wrap up, about they pulled Snell and it's an asterisk because the manager made a mistake. How do you know? The last time he pitched, the previous time they left him in, bam, 2-run home run. You definitely don't want a 2-run home run in that situation. And like he said, it's very, very common to not allow them to see the pitcher for a third time.
Isn't it the point of professional sports to exploit mistakes made by the other team?
Yeah.
So how is it an asterisk because the other team made a mistake?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Shouldn't they get an extra trophy?
It's kind of like, that's a great point. It's kind of like the people that go, oh, well, he only looks that way because he's on the juice. I got a news for you people. You can go and get all the anabolic steroids you want, and you can do the maximum dosage and sit on your ass on the couch, and all that's going to happen is you're going to have high blood pressure. You ain't going to have big muscles. You still got to get your booty in the gym, and you have to work your ass off. And it's no different with any of this other stuff.
There you go.
You have to work. They had to work for it and score the runs. Mookie Betts had to go on contact and not get thrown out at home on a weak little ground ball to first base.
Yeah.
They didn't just win because they switched the pitcher. They won because they executed.
Right.
So like you say, let's say it was a mistake to take him out. Well, isn't their job, the Dodgers' job, to take advantage and exploit the mistake?
Those are the best baseball players in the world.
And they literally did that.
Those are the best
did their
baseball players in the
job.
world.
But that's the thing. They did their job.
Exactly.
And people are, oh, put an asterisk. Yeah. Kiss my butt with your asterisk.
We've been watching that chess show. The whole point of chess, if both parties played perfectly, nobody would win. You'd have a draw.
It'd be a draw every time.
Every time.
Yeah.
The point is you exploit a mistake by your partner or your opponent to win.
And it's not just what I love about that show. Boy, we got to talk about that show on another episode. But and we're going to wrap it up here. But what I love about that show that you wouldn't possibly 100% grasp is that show presents the psychology of the game perfectly. That's why internet chess is kind of wah to me, because I loved sitting down across the board from somebody and just like having massive confident look on my face, and all of a sudden they'd be shivering over there because you come out like the 3,000-pound gorilla, like, go ahead, try to move me, mess with me, nothing's gonna happen, I am bigger than you.
Well, I have a rhetorical question that I don't even want you to answer.
Good.
If the governor of California thinks that you can prevent the spread of coronavirus by putting your mask back on in between bites of your food at dinner, why can't you play in-person chess? And on that hilariously annoying note, good night, everyone.
Basta. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Nightly Rant.
If you enjoyed the show, please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Google Play.
If you didn't enjoy the show, please just ignore that previous request for a rating.
This has been a Yogi's Podcast Network production.